Professor Amanda Carter stood at the entrance of the Galactic War College, her eyes taking in the massive crystalline towers that stretched into the purple sky of Centauride Prime. The morning light caught the edges of the building, making them shine like polished diamonds. Her new black instructor's uniform felt stiff, but she kept her back straight and her chin high. Still questioning if they made the right choice, she muttered to herself, adjusting the digital tablet under her arm. The college had never had a human instructor before, let alone one who planned to teach revolutionary combat tactics. As she walked through the main entrance, the alien students parted like water around a stone. Some of them had 4 legs, others floated on anti-gravity units, and a few moved on what looked like waves of light. They all shared the same expression, though: surprise at seeing the human in a teacher's uniform. The dean's office was on the 100th floor. Dean Rayleth, a tall Centaurian with silvery skin and 4 arms, sat behind a desk made of what looked like flowing water frozen in time. His upper right hand gestured for her to sit down. "Professor Carter," he said, his translator making his voice sound smooth and deep, "I trust you found your quarters satisfactory." "Yes, thank you, Dean," she replied, sitting down carefully in a chair that adjusted itself to human shape. "I'm ready to begin teaching today." The dean's expression shifted, all 3 of his eyes blinking in sequence. "About that, several members of the faculty have concerns." "I expected they would," Amanda said, keeping her voice steady. "Change isn't easy. They say your methods are too radical, that humans lack the necessary experience in space warfare to teach at this level." He paused, 2 of his hands forming traditional Centaurian gestures of concern. "We have been fighting among the stars for 10,000 years. Your species has barely been in space for 3 centuries. Amanda leaned forward. "And in those 3 centuries, we've developed combat systems that none of your civilizations thought possible. We've turned our weaknesses into strengths." The door chimed, and 3 alien instructors entered. Admiral Vexthal, an arthropodian with a chitinous exoskeleton decorated with rank markings, clicked his mandibles in obvious disapproval. Behind him, Professor Ilman, a gaseous being contained in a transparent teaching suit, swirled with colors of agitation. The third, Battlemaster Crix, a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the Rigel system, simply stared with his glowing red eyes. "Dean Rayleth," Admiral Vexthal began, "we must protest this appointment. Humans have no place teaching advanced combat systems. Their methods are chaos." Amanda stood up slowly. "Would you like a demonstration, Admiral?" The room went quiet. Even the gentle hum of the building's gravity generator seemed to fade. "A demonstration." Battlemaster Crix spoke for the first time, his metallic voice curious. "What kind of demonstration?" "Your first-year cadets have combat training in an hour," Amanda said. "Let me run the session. If you're not impressed, I'll resign my position." Dean Rayleth's middle eye widened, a sign of interest among his people. "That seems fair, Admiral." The arthropodian instructor's antennae twitched. "Agreed. But I will choose the scenario." An hour later, Amanda stood in the college's massive simulation chamber. 500 cadets from dozens of species filled the tiered seating around the central platform. Among them, a young arthropodian cadet named Styxis Thol watched with particular intensity, his compound eyes fixed on the human instructor. Admiral Vexthal's voice boomed through the chamber. "The scenario is the Battle of Rigel 6, a classic engagement. Standard fleet doctrine calls for a direct approach with concentrated firepower." Amanda nodded, then turned to face the cadets. "Today, we're going to do something different. Can anyone tell me why the defending fleet lost at Rigel 6? Silence filled the room. Then Zixthol raised one of his forward limbs. "They were outnumbered 3-1, he said. Defeat was inevitable." Amanda smiled. "That's what everyone thought. Computer, run simulation Carter Alpha 1. The air above the platform shimmered, and a holographic star system appeared. 2 fleets faced each other, one small, one large. "Watch carefully," Amanda said. She pressed a button on her tablet. The smaller fleet suddenly split apart, breaking into dozens of tiny groups. The larger fleet's formation became confused, trying to track too many targets. Then, from the nearby asteroid field, hundreds of tiny dots appeared. Drone swarms, Amanda explained as the simulation played out, launched in secret before the battle. And here, she pointed as the smaller ships began emitting strange energy patterns. Electronic warfare, phantom signals, false targets. The larger fleet's tight formation began to crumble as ships fired at empty space and ghost targets. The smaller fleet's scattered units struck from multiple angles, their attacks coordinated with the drone swarms. In 10 minutes, the larger fleet was in ruins. The cadets sat in stunned silence. "That's impossible," Admiral Vexthal sputtered. "The battle was lost. History records what everyone assumed must have happened," Amanda interrupted gently. "But this is what actually occurred. This data comes directly from the battle logs of the U.S. Valley Forge, which led the defending fleet." She turned back to the cadets. "The first lesson you need to learn is this. The size of your fleet matters less than how you use it. Humans learned this lesson on Earth's oceans centuries ago. We've just adapted it to space." Zexthal's antennae quivered with excitement. Several other cadets began chittering, humming, or glowing, all signs of intense interest among their various species. Dean Rayleth stepped forward, all three eyes fixed on the battle replay. "Fascinating. You turned the asteroid field into a weapon. Used the enemy's expectations against them." He turned to Admiral Vexthal. "I believe Professor Carter has earned her chance to teach." The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of frustration. But he nodded. "Unorthodox, completely against traditional doctrine, but effective." As the cadets filed out of the chamber, Zexthal approached Amanda. "Professor," he said, his translator making his voice sound young and eager, "those drone swarms, how did they coordinate their attacks so precisely?" Amanda smiled. "That's a good question, Cadet. One we'll be exploring in detail in tomorrow's class." She looked around at the other cadets who had lingered, their faces showing various alien expressions of curiosity, along with other human innovations that might surprise you. Later that evening, as Amanda sat in her quarters reviewing lesson plans, her tablet chimed with a message from Dean Rayleth. 27 cadets have already switched their specialization to human combat systems. Whatever happens next, Professor Carter, you've certainly made an impression." She looked out her window at the alien stars, so different from Earth's night sky. Change was coming to the Galactic War College, whether they were ready for it or not. And she was going to be right in the middle of it. "Not bad for day one," she said to herself, and began preparing for tomorrow's class. 2 weeks had passed since Professor Amanda Carter's dramatic demonstration at the Galactic War College. The morning sun cast long shadows through the tall windows of her classroom as she prepared for today's special lesson. She checked the sealed case on her desk one more time, making sure the prototype was ready. The classroom filled quickly. Cadet Zexthal took his usual spot in the front row, his mandibles twitching with excitement. Behind him, students of various species settled into their adaptive seats. Some floated, others crawled, and a few shifted their forms like living mercury. "Today," Amanda began, "we're going to talk about something that changed space warfare forever: human stealth technology." A ripple of interest moved through the class. Even the crystalline student in the back, who usually remained perfectly still, sparked with inner light. But first, a story. Amanda activated the room's holographic system. An image appeared of Earth's solar system, circa 2157. This was humanity's first contact with alien life. Unfortunately, it wasn't peaceful. The hologram showed a massive alien fleet appearing near Mars. The students leaned forward, recognizing the ships of the now-extinct Drachnid Empire. "We had only 27 warships to defend Earth," Amanda continued. "The Drachnids had over 300. By all traditional military doctrine, We should have lost within hours. She pressed a button, and the hologram zoomed in on a small human ship. This was the U.S. Carpenter. Instead of joining the main fleet, it carried out a mission that seemed insane at the time. The simulation showed the ship diving into Saturn's rings. Several students made sounds of confusion. The Carpenter had something new, Amanda said, reaching for the sealed case on her desk. Something like this. She opened the case and pulled out what looked like a piece of black fabric. This is a 5th-generation stealth mesh. The original version was much bigger and less effective, but it was enough. Amanda draped the mesh over her tablet. The device vanished completely. Not even a shadow remained. Gasps filled the room. The Carpenter wrapped itself in the first version of this technology, she explained, removing the mesh. Then it hid in Saturn's rings, powered down everything except basic life support, and waited. When the Drachnid fleet passed by, it followed them, recording every detail of their communications, their shield frequencies, their reactor signatures. Tixthol raised a limb. But Professor, even with that information, the human fleet was still vastly outnumbered. Amanda smiled. That's where the second human innovation comes in. Computer, show file Carter Beta 3. The hologram changed to display a massive cloud of tiny objects, each no bigger than a coffee cup. These are smart minds. The Carpenter spent 2 days seeding them throughout the ring system while recording Drachnid data. Each one was programmed with the exact frequencies needed to bypass Drachnid shields. The simulation continued, showing the Drachnid fleet returning from Earth, confident in their superior numbers. As they passed Saturn, tiny dots swarmed out from the rings. The result? Amanda pressed another button. The hologram showed massive Drachnid ships exploding as the tiny mines slipped through their shields and detonated against their hulls. 40% of their fleet destroyed in the first minute. The rest were thrown into chaos. A gaseous student near the front swirled in patterns of disbelief. But this is not in any historical record. Because we kept it secret, Amanda explained. Until now, humanity's greatest advantage wasn't our technology. It was that no one knew what we were capable of. She walked around her desk and picked up a small drone from a shelf. Which brings us to today's practical lesson. Each of you will receive a training drone and a piece of stealth mesh. Your assignment is to get your drone past the sensor grid I've set up without being detected. The students buzzed with excitement as Amanda's teaching assistant, a young human named Peter Young, began distributing equipment. One more thing, Amanda added. The sensor grid is based on current galactic standard technology, which means it's probably already outdated by human standards. Battle Master Crix, who had been observing from the doorway, stepped into the room. His cybernetic eyes focused on the stealth mesh. Professor Carter, he said, his metallic voice carrying a note of concern, sharing this technology is approved by both Earth Force Command and the College Board. Amanda finished. Times are changing, Battlemaster. We believe it's better to teach our allies how to use these systems than to keep them secret. The next 2 hours were filled with attempts by the students to navigate their drones through the sensor grid. Most failed at first, their natural instincts working against them. But slowly they began to understand. Zexthol surprised everyone by being the first to succeed. His drone slipped through by using a combination of stealth technology and the electromagnetic shadow of the room's lighting system. Excellent work, Amanda said as Zexthol's drone emerged undetected on the other side. You're thinking like a human now, using every available resource, no matter how small. After class, as the students filed out still chattering about stealth technology, Battlemaster Crix approached Amanda's desk. You know what he said, when you first arrived, I thought teaching human combat systems would be a waste of time. He picked up a piece of stealth mesh, watching it shimmer. I was wrong. Your methods are extraordinary. Amanda nodded. Humans had to be extraordinary to survive. We were late to the game, outgunned and outnumbered. Innovation wasn't just an advantage, it was our only option. Later that evening, as Amanda updated her lesson plans, she received an urgent message from Dean Raylith. The text was brief. Emergency faculty meeting tomorrow morning. Several instructors are protesting the sharing of human military technology. Be prepared. She looked at the stealth mesh sitting on her desk, remembering humanity's desperate fight for survival in those early days. Change never came easily, especially to institutions as old as the Galactic War College. But it came all the same. Amanda began preparing her defense of the Human Combat Systems program. Tomorrow would bring another battle, this time in the faculty chamber instead of space. But she was ready. After all, adaptation in the face of superior forces was what humans did best. The morning of the emergency faculty meeting dawned stormy on Centauride Prime. Professor Amanda Carter watched purple lightning dance between the crystal towers of the Galactic War College. The sight reminded her of the challenge ahead. But before she could reach the faculty chamber, alarms blared throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Professor Cadet Zixthul rushed toward her, his kit and armor gleaming under the warning lights. Something's gone wrong in the advanced simulation chamber. Amanda broke into a run, following Zixthul down the hallway. They could hear chaos before they even reached the chamber. Shouts in various alien languages, the hum of malfunctioning equipment, and the distinct sound of safety systems activating. The simulation chamber's doors slid open to reveal a scene of confusion. A joint exercise between third-year cadets had gone terribly wrong. The massive holographic display showed two fleets locked in combat, but something was clearly broken. Ships moved in impossible patterns, weapons fired without commands, and the simulation's safety protocols had failed. Admiral Vexthal stood at the main control panel, his mandibles clicking furiously. "Shut it down," he ordered. "The system isn't responding." Amanda rushed to the controls. "What happened?" "Your human combat systems," the Admiral snapped. "We were running a traditional fleet exercise when some students tried to add in those drone swarm tactics you taught them. The simulation couldn't handle the calculations." Through the chaos, Amanda noticed something odd about the system's behavior. "This isn't a calculation error," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Someone altered the base code. Look at this." She pulled up a diagnostic screen showing lines of programming. Deep in the code, someone had added new parameters that deliberately conflicted with each other. "Sabotage," Battlemaster Crix said, his cybernetic eyes scanning the code. But who would do this? Lieutenant John Mills chose that moment to enter the chamber. The human exchange officer took one look at the situation and immediately moved to help. "Professor Carter," he called out, "I recognize this code pattern. We've seen it before." Working together, Amanda and John quickly isolated the malicious code and shut down the affected systems. The holographic ships flickered and vanished, leaving the chamber in sudden silence. "What do you mean, you've seen this before?" Dean Raylith asked, all three of his eyes focused on John. "I just arrived from the Orient sector," John explained. "There's a group there that's been trying to discredit human military influence. They call themselves traditionalists." Amanda turned to face the gathered faculty and students. Someone wanted this exercise to fail. They wanted to prove that human combat systems can't work with traditional methods. And they nearly succeeded, Admiral Vexthal said. "The college board will hear about this incident. They may decide to suspend the Human Combat Systems program." "Wait." Zixthul stepped forward, his antennae twitching nervously. "I've been studying human military history in my free time. This kind of sabotage, it's exactly what humans have faced before. And they always found a way through it." Lieutenant Mills nodded. "The cadet's right. In fact, this gives us a perfect opportunity to demonstrate another human innovation." He pulled out a data crystal. "I brought something from my last deployment. Combat footage that proves how effective hybrid tactics can be." The room grew quiet as John inserted the crystal into the system. The holographic display came back online, showing a real battle recording. A small fleet of mixed human and alien ships faced off against a much larger enemy force. Watch what happens when we combine traditional galactic fleet formations with human drone tactics, John said. The recording showed the Allied fleet executing a perfect traditional pincer movement. But as the enemy responded to this familiar tactic, swarms of stealth drones emerged from hidden positions. The combination caught the enemy completely off guard. This battle was won with less than half the expected casualties, John explained, because we worked together instead of fighting separately. Dean Rayleth stepped forward. Professor Carter, I understand the faculty meeting was meant to discuss removing human combat systems from our curriculum. But perhaps we should instead discuss expanding the program. Admiral Vexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of internal conflict. The sabotage attempt proves one thing, he said finally. Someone fears what these human innovations might mean. In my experience, when an enemy fears something, it's usually worth learning about. Later that evening, Amanda sat in her office reviewing the day's events. A message flashed on her screen. A notice that enrollment requests for her classes had doubled since the morning's incident. Zixthal knocked on her door, carrying a stack of data pads. Professor, I've been thinking about what happened. Maybe we could design a new simulation system, one that combines the best of both human and galactic technology. Amanda smiled. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, Cadet. The traditionalists thought they could stop change by breaking one system. Instead, they've inspired us to build something better. She looked out at the storm still raging between the towers. Lightning flashed again, but this time it didn't look like a warning. It looked like illumination, showing the way forward. Change is coming to the galaxy, she said. We can either fight it, or we can learn to guide it. I know which option I prefer. Zixthal's antennae waved in agreement. We should probably back up the new system, though, just in case. Amanda laughed. Now you're really thinking like a human. The emergency alert sounded at midnight, its harsh tone cutting through the quiet halls of the Galactic War College. Professor Amanda Carter was still in her office, working with Cadet Zixthal on their new simulation system when the warning came. Alert. Pirate activity detected in the Proxima system. All senior faculty report to the command center immediately. Amanda and Zixthal exchanged glances. Come with me, she said. This might be a chance to see real combat operations. They rushed to the command center, joining Dean Rayleth, Admiral Vexthal, and other faculty members around a large holographic display. The image showed 3 massive pirate vessels attacking a civilian mining colony. The pirates are using old Drachnid warships, Battlemaster Crix reported, his cybernetic eyes scanning the data. Heavy shields, conventional weapons. They're demanding the colony's entire quantum fuel supply. Fleet response time, Dean Rayleth asked. 2 hours at best, Admiral Vexthal replied. The colony won't last that long. Major Lisa Wright, who had arrived last week as a guest lecturer, stepped forward. There's another option. My ship is in orbit, the Earth Force Frigate Swiftwind. It's equipped with the latest human combat systems. The room went quiet. Amanda noticed the alien faculty members exchanging uncertain looks. 1 frigate against 3 Drachnid warships. Admiral Vexthal's mandibles clicked nervously. That's suicide by any tactical measure. Not if we use what we've been teaching, Amanda said. She turned to the dean. Sir, let this be a practical demonstration. Let our students see how human combat systems work in a real situation. Dean Rayleth's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. Major Wright, how quickly can you deploy? 15 minutes, Lisa answered. And I'd like to request Cadet Zixthal as an observer. He's been leading his class in human tactical studies. The young arthropodian's antennae quivered with excitement. The dean nodded his approval. 30 minutes later, Amanda stood in the command center with the other faculty, watching the swift wind approach the pirate vessels. The frigate was small compared to the massive Drachnid ships, its sleek hull barely visible against the star field. Beginning attack run, Major Wright's voice came through clearly. Initiating Human Combat Protocol Shadow Dance. The swift wind suddenly vanished from all sensors. Admiral Vexthal leaned forward, his compound eyes fixed on the display. Where did they go? Watch, Amanda said with a smile. Hundreds of small objects began emerging from the asteroid field near the colony. Drone swarms, each one carrying a miniature stealth field generator. They moved in complex patterns, creating a web of sensor ghosts and false signals. The pirate ships began firing wildly, their weapons hitting nothing but empty space. Their formation broke as each captain tried to deal with multiple phantom threats. Now, Major Wright's voice commanded. The swift wind reappeared directly above the lead pirate vessel. Before the pirates could react, precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses disabled their shield generators. The drone swarms swooped in, attaching themselves to the ship's hulls and overriding their control systems. 3 Drachnid warships neutralized, Lisa reported calmly. No casualties on either side. Colony is secure. The command center erupted in excited chatter. Even Admiral Vexthal seemed impressed. Remarkable, he said. They never fired a single conventional weapon. Vexthal's voice came over the comms, full of enthusiasm. Professor Carter, the drones, they used the colony's mining beacons to mask their approach, just like in your lectures about using existing infrastructure. Well done noticing that, cadet, Amanda replied. She turned to the faculty members. This is what we've been trying to teach. Human combat systems aren't just about technology. They're about using everything available in new and unexpected ways. Dean Ryleth stepped forward. I believe this demonstration settles any remaining doubts about the value of human combat instruction. Major Wright, would you consider extending your stay as a permanent instructor? I'd be honored, Lisa replied. The cadets here show real promise. Later that evening, as the swift wind docked at the college's orbital station, Amanda met with Vexthal and Major Wright in the observation lounge. The 3 captured pirate ships hung in space nearby, a testament to the effectiveness of human tactics. You know, Lisa said, watching a maintenance drone swarm repair minor damage to her ship. 10 years ago, most of the galaxy thought humans were too primitive to matter in space combat. Now they're starting to understand what we've known all along. What's that? Vexthal asked, his antennae tilted in curiosity. That true strength isn't about having the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, Amanda answered. It's about adapting, innovating, and never fighting the way your enemy expects. Speaking of expectations, Lisa added with a grin, wait until they see what we're planning for next semester's advanced tactical training. Vexthal's mandibles clicked in what Amanda had learned was an arthropodian expression of joy. More human innovations. Better, Amanda said. We're going to teach you how to create your own. Because that's the real secret of human combat systems. We never stop evolving. Through the observation window, they could see more students arriving at the orbital station, eager to inspect the captured ships and learn from the day's events. The news of the Swift Wind's victory had spread quickly through the college. Change was happening faster than anyone had expected. But as Amanda watched her alien students examining the drone swarms with fascination, she knew it was change for the better. The galaxy was finally ready to learn what humanity had to teach. The graduation ceremony of the Galactic War College filled the grand hall with light and color. Floating crystals cast rainbow patterns across the assembled crowd of students, faculty, and distinguished guests from across the galaxy. Professor Amanda Carter sat on the stage with the other instructors, watching with pride as the first class to complete the Human Combat Systems program prepared to receive their certifications. Dean Ryleth stood at the podium, his silvery skin reflecting the ceremonial lights. Today marks a historic moment, he announced, his translator carrying his voice clearly through the hall. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic War College has fundamentally changed its approach to military education. In the front row, Cadet Vexthal sat straight and tall, his freshly polished kitten armor gleaming. Next to him, Students of various species waited eagerly, some floating, others standing on multiple legs, and a few existing as pure energy contained in education suits. When Professor Carter first arrived, the dean continued, many thought human combat systems were too radical, too different from our traditions. The events of this past year have proven otherwise. Admiral Vexthal stepped forward, his mandibles now decorated with the silver markings of a lead instructor. Our graduates today have mastered not just human tactics, but the art of combining them with traditional galactic warfare. They represent the future of space combat. A large holographic display activated above the stage, showing footage from the Swift Wind's victory over the pirates. The audience watched in appreciation as the small human ship and its drone swarms disabled 3 massive warships without a single casualty. But perhaps more importantly, Major Lisa Wright added from her place on stage, they have learned to think in new ways, to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. The ceremony proceeded as each graduate came forward to receive their certification. When Zexthal's name was called, he approached the stage with confident steps. Amanda smiled, remembering his first day in class, when he had been skeptical of everything human. Cadet Zexthal, Dean Rayleth announced, your thesis on hybrid combat reforms has earned the highest honors in college history. Your work will help shape military doctrine for generations to come. Zexthal accepted his certification, then turned to address the audience. A year ago, I thought I knew everything about space combat, he said, his translator conveying the emotion in his voice. I thought bigger ships and stronger weapons were all that mattered. Professor Carter and the Human Combat Systems program taught me that the greatest weapon is the ability to think differently. After the ceremony, the Grand Hall transformed for the celebration. Students and faculty mingled while holographic displays showed scenes from the year's most successful training exercises. Battle Master Crix, his cybernetic eyes now upgraded with human stealth detection systems, approached Amanda. I have a confession, Professor, he said. I was one of the strongest opponents to your appointment. Now my own combat unit has adopted many of your methods. The methods aren't just human anymore, Amanda replied. Look around. Every species here has added something new to what we taught. That's exactly what we hoped would happen. Near the refreshment area, a group of graduates demonstrated a new drone control system they had developed. It combined human swarm tactics with arthropodian hive mind principles and Centaurian energy manipulation. The result was something entirely new, exactly the kind of innovation the program was meant to inspire. Dean Rayleth joined them, holding a data crystal. The College Board's decision was unanimous, he said. Human combat systems will become a core requirement for all military students starting next term. Additionally, we're opening 5 new research centers to study hybrid warfare techniques. A sudden commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A delegation of Rigilian war scholars, known for their conservative views on military tradition, entered the hall. Their leader, Grand Strategist Vorkath, approached the dean. We have reviewed the combat footage from the pirate incident, Vorkath announced formally. The Rigilian Military Academy requests immediate collaboration on joint training programs. Amanda shared a knowing look with Zexthal, who had joined them. Change was spreading faster than anyone had expected. The old barriers between species and their military traditions were falling away, replaced by something new and more effective. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Amanda found herself back in her classroom. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the tactical display, still showing the Swift Wind's victory. Thinking about the future, Major Wright asked, entering the room. Thinking about how far we've come, Amanda replied. When I first arrived, I wondered if the galaxy was ready for human combat systems. Now I'm wondering if we're ready for what comes next. What do you mean? Amanda gestured to a stack of data pads on her desk. These are proposals from the graduating class. New ideas that combine human innovation with alien technology in ways I never imagined. They're not just learning our methods anymore. They're creating something entirely new. Isn't that exactly what we wanted? Lisa asked with a smile. "It's better than what we wanted," Amanda said. "We came here to teach, but we ended up starting a revolution in military thought. Every graduate who leaves here will spread these ideas further, combine them with their own traditions, create new innovations we haven't even dreamed of yet." The next morning, as Amanda prepared for the first day of a new term, she found a message from Earth Force Command on her desk. They were requesting her help in updating their own training programs based on what had been learned at the college. She looked out at the crystal towers of the Galactic War College, now home to the most advanced military education program in known space. In less than a year, what had started as a controversial experiment had grown into something that was changing the face of space combat across the galaxy. A new class of students filed into her classroom, their faces, both alien and human, eager to learn. On her desk sat Zexthal's thesis, already being distributed to military academies across known space. "Welcome to Human Combat Systems," Amanda began, "though perhaps we should think of a new name. After all, these aren't just human ideas anymore. They belong to all of us now." The students leaned forward, ready to learn, ready to innovate, ready to carry this revolution in military thought to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And Amanda Carter, the professor who had started it all, couldn't wait to see what they would create next.